Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into satin slippers and stepping delicately through a world where looking half dead was considered drop dead gorgeous. You open your eyes to the weak light of a Victorian morning, and the first thing you feel is the stiffness of your face. You've slept with your head slightly elevated, not for your neck, of course not, but to keep your blood from pooling too much in your cheeks. A flushed face is indecent. It suggests exertion. It hints at life, and in this world, beauty flirts with fragility. You sit at your little vanity table, cold to the touch. On it lies a familiar array: a porcelain pot of rice powder, a jar of vinegar-soaked cloths, and something in a blue glass bottle that smells vaguely of old coins. You start with the vinegar. Dab, dab, dab. It stings just enough to remind you it's working. The acidity eats gently at your outermost layer of skin. That pinkness that once made you look healthy? Unacceptable. Next comes the white lead powder. You pause, staring at yourself in the mirror. Without it, your complexion betrays too much. Faint freckles from one summer day too long in the garden, the light shadow of sleep under your eyes. You dust the powder generously across your face, neck, and even your ears. A proper lady doesn't reveal the uneven warmth of actual skin. She must look like marble, preferably cold. You remember the cautionary tale of poor Miss Eliza, who foolishly allowed a tan to settle over her nose during a week in Bath. Unfit for marriage, the whispers went, as if she had confessed to factory labour. You won't let that be you. You've got two suitors hanging in the balance and a mother who breathes like a bird of prey over every wardrobe choice. You pick up the rouge, then put it down. It's too soon. Rouge is political. Wear too much, and you'll be mistaken for an actress. Or worse, a French woman. Your hands hover instead over another small box, pressed geranium petals, a gentler touch of colour, just enough to keep people from calling you consumptive. Your governess once told you the Duchess of Devonshire had a complexion so pale she looked as if she'd never drawn a full breath. You remember thinking how sad that sounded, but now you understand. There's power in looking like you might faint at any moment. It draws people closer. They want to protect you, praise you, possess you. And so you press on, literally. A faint dusting here. A dab of something bitter under the eyes to dull the redness. A fine mist of rosewater to fix it all, though it won't last. It never does. The city air is brutal, full of smoke and sweat and stray ash from chimneys. But for now, you are perfect. Across the street you spot your neighbour leaning out her window, sunlight catching her skin, golden and warm. You wince. She'll pay for that in whispers. A tan means one of two things. You work with your hands or you've no shame. Either way, it's social suicide. You wonder sometimes what your skin would look like if you stopped all this. Let the sun kiss your nose. Let the wind bring real colour to your cheeks. Let yourself glow. But that thought dies as quickly as it came. Glow is for candles, you're for gaslight. And there it's again. The sickly porcelain face in the mirror. Fragile, otherworldly, just right. Your mother knocks once before entering. Always once. Always without waiting. She says nothing about your face, but she eyes it with military precision. Too much powder and she'll tell you that you look theatrical. Too little, and she'll say you've been lazy with your standards. But today she nods once. Approved. You exhale like you've passed a silent inspection. Downstairs, breakfast is waiting, but you're not hungry. The vinegar on your skin has left a bitter aftertaste at the back of your throat. You sip tepid tea instead. No milk, no sugar. Just the gentle acid sliding down like ritual. Across the table, your sister, younger but already paler, already more admired, is sitting bolt upright, her mouth a quiet straight line. You envy her restraint. She's not even flinching at the sight of her egg. Your father reads the paper and doesn't look at either of you. He doesn't need to. Your beauty isn't for him. It's for the world he wants to marry you into. The drawing room, the carriage, the dance floor. You're sculpted not to please yourselves, but to survive. Later that afternoon you visit the chemist. The bell tinkles above the door and the air smells of camphor and chalk. On the counter are delicate glass bottles labelled in careful script. White mercury cream, arsenical complexion wafers, and one particularly mysterious item, Dr. Campbell's pearl tablets for beautifying the skin. You hesitate, then choose the wafers. They say a wafer a day keeps the blemishes at bay. They don't mention the long-term consequences, tremors, fatigue, maybe the slow decay of your gums. But no one wants to think about that. The chemist wraps it neatly in paper and twine, gives you a practiced smile. He's seen girls like you come and go, chasing alabaster dreams. He doesn't judge. Arsenic pays well. Back home you sit near the window and flip through a fashion plate from the ladies' magazine. The drawings show women with impossibly smooth skin, eyes downcast, mouths closed. They look passive, perfect, barely alive. You stare at one for a moment and wonder if she looks like that because she wants to, or because she never had another option. The sun begins to set and with it the shadows soften. This is your moment. Gaslight time. The hour when your pale face glows best, lit not by sun but by flickering golden illusion. You turn slightly toward the glass, admiring how the powder catches the low amber glow. Just enough to blur the flaws, not enough to reveal the artifice. Your maid enters with the evening gown, silver and violet, chosen not to contrast your skin, but to highlight its deathly calm. You step into it like armour. Later tonight at the assembly hall, men will bow, women will appraise, and someone will whisper that you look like a porcelain angel. You'll smile, just a little, not enough to show teeth. That would be too much. The powder itches faintly now, but you don't scratch. You've learned to hold still. That's part of the look. Delicate, distant, perfect. And inside, you're not entirely sure where your skin ends and the powder begins. You hold your breath as the maid tightens the laces again. That's the third tug this morning. Your hands clutch the edge of the bedpost, knuckles white. She's good, quiet, efficient, but you still feel your ribs folding inward like paper fans. You've done this so many times you've memorized the stages. Breath, brace, pull, pinch, nod. The corset creaks slightly, a sinister little whine that feels alive against your back. And then, click. The busk snaps shut. You release your breath in shallow sips, not gulps. No room for gulps. The corset has claimed your lungs too. It's not just fashion. It's your armour, your uniform, your badge of virtue and discipline. A tiny waist is a tiny appetite, a small footprint, a demure presence. Victorian men don't just want a beautiful woman, they want a self-contained one, compressed, composed, quiet. You step toward the mirror, you can barely walk. Not because it's too tight, though it is, but because your stride has been shortened. Your hips are locked in place. Your knees must glide, not stomp. It forces elegance, like a swan that's been nailed to the floorboards. Your waist today is 18 inches. Last season it was 20. You're improving. Somewhere in the house, your aunt still brags about her 16-inch corset in her courting days. She wore it so tightly for so long that her lower ribs fused. Her waist stayed small even after childbirth, though no one talks about the 3 miscarriages in between. You remember once, as a child, finding one of her old corsets in a trunk. It looked like a relic from a torture museum. The boning had warped into strange curves, and there were faint rust stains along the seams. Sweat, someone whispered, or blood. Still, there's no fear in your chest as you wear your own. Only pressure. Beautiful, painful pressure. It hugs you like approval, like your mother's proud silence, like society's handshake. You've heard whispers of the rational dress movement. Women in London calling for looser clothing, bodily autonomy, even, heaven forbid, bloomers. You think of them sometimes when the ache in your ribs turns sharp, but then you look at your silhouette and see the bell-shaped curve, the gentle swoop from bosom to cinched waist to flared skirt, and you feel powerful. Ridiculous, isn't it? You're physically weaker, practically breathless, but when the corset molds you just right, people look at you like you're magic. They assume you're pure, delicate, worth protecting, or possessing. That's the trick. Beauty in this world isn't just about attraction, it's about obedience. The corset teaches you early how to endure, to suffer quietly, to smile when your stomach twists, to float when your feet throb. It starts with your waist, but it ends in your mind, and you, like all the other girls at the ball tonight, will curtsy so deeply your vision blurs. Not because you're dizzy, though you are, but because that's what the best trained beauty does. She bows until the room forgets she's in pain. The carriage ride to the assembly hall jolts you more than usual tonight. Every bump in the cobbled street sends a shiver through your spine, pressed tight against the corset's rigid steel stays. You're not alone. Your sister winces with each lurch too, her own torso locked into a stiff column of whalebone and pride. You're both perched like porcelain dolls, hands folded, backs impossibly straight. Speaking is optional. Moving, discouraged. The corset keeps you in constant conversation with your own body, a reminder not to slouch, not to sprawl, not to exist too loudly. At the hall, footmen help you descend the steps. You nod graciously, but don't smile. It's too exhausting, and your abdomen is braced so tightly that even chuckling would risk hiccups, or worse, unladylike gasping. The last thing you want is to be seen panting under your bodice like a winded horse. Inside, the air is thick with perfume and anticipation. Girls glide like clockwork ballerinas, their waists impossibly small under silks, their eyes wide but wary. Everyone's playing the same quiet game. Who can look the most graceful while secretly gasping for air? You catch a glimpse of Lady Pembroke by the refreshment table. She's wearing the newest corset style, the swan waist, with extra boning that curves in just below the ribs. It looks exquisite. It also looks like she hasn't eaten in days. But no one notices that. They're too busy marvelling at her profile, that perfect S-curve that screams discipline and breeding. A gentleman approaches you and bows. "May I have this dance?" You nod. The waltz begins and your body remembers the limits. You can't bend, you can't twist, so you glide like a reed in shallow water. It's elegant from a distance. Up close, you're counting each step like a prayer, praying your stays hold and your breath doesn't catch too violently. Your partner compliments your posture. You want to laugh. He doesn't know you've been training for this posture since you were 12, that your governess would tie a rod to your back and make you practice with a teacup balanced on your head, that your waist was measured weekly like a prized racehorse, charted on paper, judged by inches, not kindness. He doesn't see the bruises on your sides or the little scab from yesterday's boning dig. And why would he? That's not part of the costume. Pain, after all, is unseemly. Later, back in the dressing room, you unhook the busk and let out a breath so deep it feels like a secret escaping. You press your fingers into your waist. There's an indentation so sharp it could catch rainwater. You touch it again, not with horror, but pride. You've done it. Tomorrow you'll be sore. You might even cough up a little blood again like you did last spring, but tonight your waist was noticed, admired, measured by glances and found worthy. In this world, that means everything. You wake before the maid does, not because of the sun, which barely filters through the thick damask curtains, but because of the ache in your scalp. You've slept with your hair braided tightly and pinned in loops to avoid tangling, a style that allows no movement, no dreams of comfort. Hair is not just hair, it's your crown, your virtue, your future, and yours must be long, thick and dark, ideally brushed 100 strokes each night. That's what the etiquette books say anyway. You once tried to count each stroke aloud, but lost track somewhere around 60 when your arm began to burn. Still, the effort matters. A girl with lustrous hair has self-discipline. A girl with limp or frizzy locks, well, she must be careless with more than just her appearance. You sit at the vanity and begin the morning ritual. Unpin, uncoil, comb. You do it slowly, carefully. One wrong tug and you'll pull strands out. Hair loss is humiliating. It's whispered about behind gloves, the sort of gossip that kills prospects. Your brush is made of boar bristles. It smells faintly of lavender and oil, not from the product, because real hair oil is frowned upon as foreign, but from the sachet your maid tucks into your drawer to keep things fresh. A clever compromise. Victorian ideals say your hair must reach your waist by the time you're 16, and yours did, barely. It's chestnut brown in daylight, nearly black at dusk. You once read in a ladies' column that blonde hair was ideal in paintings but too childish in life. Red hair was worse, branded vulgar unless it belonged to a duchess or a myth. Still brushing, you remember the story of Miss Althea, who cut her hair in grief after her fiancé died in a horse accident. She gave the braid to his mother as a keepsake. The scandal wasn't that she mourned, it was that she dared appear in society with hair above her shoulders. For a year, no one invited her to anything. A short-haired woman was untrustworthy, too modern, too emotional, too exposed. You part your hair down the middle as fashion dictates. Centre parts are serious, chaste. Side parts hint at whimsy, which might be interpreted as seduction. And you can't afford that, not with suitors circling like moths and your mother watching your every gesture. Once parted, your maid helps braid it loosely into 2 long ropes. You'll wind them into a bun later, but for now you let them hang. You study yourself in the mirror. You look older with your hair down. There's something almost startling about seeing your own hair free. It feels intimate, improper, like showing your ankles before breakfast. No one tells you this, but you've learned it yourself. Beauty, in this world, is half what they see and half what you hide. And your hair, it must be everywhere and nowhere all at once, always perfect, never touched, unless you're dying or getting married. Midday brings preparations for your portrait sitting, an oil commission your aunt has insisted on gifting for your 17th birthday. It's an honour, she says, a rite of passage, but really it's a kind of advertisement. A future husband's first glance might be through brush strokes. The painter arrives with a trunk of props, velvet shawls, faux pearls, a small harp, but none of that matters as much as your hair. He stands behind his easel, peering at you with squinted eyes and a faint frown. Hair down, he says. Loosen it, more natural. Your heart skips. You glance at your chaperone and she nods, just barely. For art, exceptions are allowed, but it still feels indecent. You slowly undo the braids, letting them unravel like a secret. The weight of your own hair surprises you. It tumbles past your waist, tickling your elbows, warm against your back. It smells like lavender and starch and maybe something wilder. You're suddenly aware of how alive you feel. The artist hums as he works. Excellent sheen, fine texture. He speaks of you like a vase. You sit perfectly still, but your mind wanders to the girls who never made it to portrait age. You heard once of a housemaid who had hair as long as her skirt. She was dismissed for enticing the master's son, though no one ever asked what the son did. They say she cut her braid off with sewing scissors and sold it to a wig maker for less than a guinea. You blink. Back in the studio, the painter leans forward and lifts a lock of your hair, not roughly but without asking. You flinch, and he chuckles. "Don't worry, miss, it's your best feature." That night you wonder if he's right, if your hair is your greatest value, not your wit, which you keep folded under silence, not your music, which you're only allowed to play during supper. Just this, these long, disciplined strands, the colour of burnt chestnut and candlelight. And yet, you think there's something absurdly powerful about it. Your hair moves when you can't. It brushes your arms when no one else is allowed to. It remembers your childhood, your prayers, your fears. You've shed tears into it, hidden behind it. Let it carry your secrets like a veil. Maybe that's why you care for it so religiously, because in a world that tells you to shrink, bind, hush, and comply, your hair is the one thing that still grows. You're seated at tea with your gloves on, because it's not yet acceptable to bare your fingers in polite company, not even when holding a teacup. The room is pleasant, soft gaslight flickering on porcelain, a hint of orange peel in the scones, and the quiet clink of silverware as someone spoons sugar into a guest's cup. You laugh lightly at a joke from Lady Whitmore's niece, though you're not sure you understood it. Then it happens. One of the girls, a newcomer from the north, smiles, a wide, open smile. You catch it only for a moment, but it's too late. Her teeth are white, brilliantly so. Everyone sees it. Lady Whitmore blinks. The room pauses. It's subtle, but it's real. That kind of smile is inappropriate. Toothiness is theatrical, unladylike, suspicious. You sip your tea slowly and lower your eyes. You can feel her blushing beside you, unsure of what she's done. You've been trained better. You've mastered the close-lipped smile, the demure glance, the subtle lift at the corners of your mouth that says, "I'm amused, but not too much." Showing too many teeth implies desire. Or worse, American tendencies. They say those women grin like actresses and wear rouge before noon. You shiver at the thought. In Victorian England, the ideal mouth is modest, unassuming, and closed. The lips must be soft in colour, perhaps tinged with beeswax, but nothing bright. Rouge on the mouth is for the stage. Lipstick, true lipstick, is scandalous. Only the French indulge in such vulgarity, and even they have the decency to keep it behind drawn curtains. Your governess used to tell you a tale of a girl who laughed too loud at a wedding and cracked the veneer on her front tooth. She never married. No one wanted to kiss a girl whose mouth looked eager to bite. Since then, you've learned. Laughter must be quiet, lips must be restrained, and if your teeth are white, you'd best be hiding them. You excuse yourself and step into the powder room. Inside, a gilded mirror reflects your face in candlelight. You inspect your own teeth briefly. Not too white. Thank goodness. You chew on a clove just in case. The bitterness stings your tongue but dulls the breath. Back in the sitting room, conversation resumes as if nothing happened. The girl with the gleaming smile now sips her tea in silence. She's learned. You once read in a journal that in ancient times women blacken their teeth to signify virtue and maturity. Strange how far we've come, and yet how similar it still is. Whiteness, brightness, too vivid, too bold, must be tempered. Beauty, in your world, walks a narrow line between visible and veiled. Later, on the carriage ride home, your mother leans over and whispers, "You carried yourself well today." It's her highest compliment. You nod politely and hide your own smile behind a lace-trimmed handkerchief. Not because your teeth are too white, but because showing joy in public is still something that must be managed. That evening, you linger at your writing desk, quill in hand, thinking of the girl with the bright smile. Her face keeps drifting into your mind like a stubborn perfume. There was something so alive in that expression, so unsupervised. You wonder if she feels ashamed now, or free. You glance at the small silver mirror beside your inkpot. It's warped slightly at the edges, which softens everything into a dreamy blur. Your mouth looks correct here. Small, pale, composed, the way it should. You recall the home remedy your aunt once passed on, spoken in a hushed tone like a scandalous secret. A rinse of lemon juice and baking soda to brighten teeth just a little, but only once a month, and never before a ball. Too much and they'd shine. Shine invites comment. Comment invites speculation. There are dentists, of course, but few women admit to visiting them. Dentistry is associated with pain, blood, men shouting in back alleys. Besides, many women would rather endure a cavity than risk being seen in public with a swollen cheek or missing molar. You'd heard once of a lady who had a tooth removed and wore a handkerchief across her face for a week, pretending she had neuralgia. To have perfect teeth naturally is rare. To admit to trying for them artificially? Social suicide. Your friend Clara once confessed to using charcoal to polish her molars. It worked. Until it didn't. The enamel wore away, and now she covers her mouth every time she speaks. She's practically mastered the art of smiling without moving her lips. It's a dance all of you know. How to tilt your head just so. How to laugh behind a fan. How to show delight without showing. Teeth. And yet, you can't stop wondering, what if smiling openly wasn't dangerous? What if you could bare your teeth and not your shame? But then you hear your mother's voice downstairs, calling for you to fetch your embroidery. The daydream fades. You fold the thought away like a letter you'll never send. In the drawing room, your father looks up from the paper. "Did you see the new governess on Pemberley Street?" he asks. She's got a rather American grin. Everyone chuckles. You do too, politely. But inside something twists. You don't hate your smile. You've just been taught to distrust it. And so, as the room fills with lamplight and evening pleasantries, you sit perfectly still, mouth softened, lips closed. You're no fool. Your face is still your fortune. And in this economy, fortune doesn't flash its teeth. The sun is shining today. Really shining. That soft golden warmth that makes you want to throw open the windows and let everything, dust, breeze, life, come spilling in. But you don't. Instead, you pull the curtains tighter. There's nothing more damning to a Victorian woman's beauty than a tan. You stand in the parlour, adjusting your gloves, already feeling the sticky promise of summer on your skin. You check your reflection in the hall mirror, just to be sure. No colour yet, no warmth across the bridge of your nose. Good, you've been careful. Outside, gardeners move about in shirt sleeves, sleeves rolled up, faces glistening in the heat. Their skin is brown and freckled from honest labour. It's a look that says, "I work." A look you must never have. You're not supposed to look like you've ever touched dirt, even if you sometimes dream about running barefoot in the garden just to feel alive. There are stories, quiet ones, of girls who let the sun in and were mistaken for milkmaids. Your parasol waits by the door, the finest silk stretched across bone-coloured spokes. It's more than just sunshade, it's protection from whispers. You clutch it like a weapon as you step outside. The street is busy. Carriages rumble past and you can hear the sharp cry of a market boy somewhere down the lane. The air smells of horses and lilac and something vaguely sweet. Perhaps the baker's apprentice is burning sugar again. You hold your parasol high, angling it just so, watching the light flicker across the lace. A neighbour waves. You nod but don't smile. Smiling too long might draw attention, and attention invites scrutiny. The sun sneaks around the edge of your parasol, warming your cheek. You flinch subtly and turn your head. You've heard of girls applying vinegar-soaked cloths to their skin after accidental sun exposure, desperate to reverse the damage. One even tried lemon juice mixed with milk. It turned her skin red and sour-smelling, and she stayed home for a week, claiming illness. You once overheard a debutante in Bath say she'd rather be ugly than tan. Everyone laughed, no one disagreed, and so you move quickly, keeping to the shaded side of the street. You'd rather sweat under 3 layers of petticoat than risk a single freckle. Freckles are charming on children, regrettable on adults, and unforgivable on women who hope to marry well. You reach the dressmaker's shop and step inside with relief. The interior is dim and cool, and the faint scent of muslin and lavender hangs in the air. Madame looks up, then immediately scans your face, not for expression, but for tone. Colour. She's checking. "You've stayed pale, I see," she says approvingly. "Lovely." You murmur your thanks. It feels strange to be praised for absence, for lacking pigment, for looking like you've been stored in a drawer, but that's the standard. Fragile, indoor, untouched by life. You're porcelain, remember, and porcelain doesn't sunbathe. Back home, you stand near the upstairs window just behind the curtain, watching the afternoon sun shift across the rooftops. Light dances on the chimneys and spills across the garden wall, where the ivy climbs in crooked lines. You catch your reflection in the glass, pale forehead, paler cheeks, and that slight sheen of sweat you're not supposed to acknowledge. You blot it gently with a linen handkerchief. Your maid enters carrying a small tin of powdered rice starch. "For your décolletage," she says softly. You nod. Even the chest must remain pale, though it rarely sees the sun. For evening gowns, especially those with scooped necklines, you must dust carefully. No shine, no flush, no hint that your body contains blood. You've been told that noble women of us old once powdered their shoulders and arms too. It makes them look colder, more regal, more like something that belongs in a painting. You sit at the vanity and let her dust your collarbones, the tops of your shoulders, the base of your throat. It tickles, and you bite the inside of your cheek to avoid laughing. Laughter makes the chest rise and fall too visibly. Another thing to suppress. She brushes the powder on with soft circular strokes. You notice that one of your freckles has returned, barely there, just under the clavicle. You remember the day it appeared, an hour spent too long by the fountain, reading a novel you weren't supposed to enjoy. You cover it quickly. At supper that night, your aunt arrives unexpectedly, bringing with her a cousin you barely know, and a mountain of disapproval wrapped in lace. She inspects you like one might inspect a pear, gently tapping for bruises. When her eyes settle on your arms, bare in your evening gown, she nods slightly. "I do admire a girl who protects her complexion," she says. "No sunspots, no vulgar tan." You thank her, even though the praise makes your stomach tighten. You remember hearing about women in India who darken their skin on purpose. It's said with a half whisper, half snicker in your social circle. "Imagine that," someone once said, "choosing to look like a servant." But you wonder, was it a choice, or just a different kind of expectation? The conversation turns to travel, and you listen quietly. Italy, Egypt, Ceylon, places where the light is golden and skin drinks it like honey. Places you'll likely never see, unless you marry into a family with a proper yacht and a progressive streak. Even then, you'd need to pack twice the number of veils. As the meal ends, you glance down at your hands. Gloved, of course. You haven't seen the back of your own hand in daylight for months. It occurs to you that your skin is something you maintain, but rarely inhabit. Later, as you prepare for bed, you wash your face with rose water and milk. The smell is sweet, comforting. You look in the mirror one last time before the lamp is turned down, still pale, still perfect, and yet you feel oddly invisible. Because to be admired here, you must look like you barely exist. You've always known your eyes were too ordinary, not stormy grey like your cousins, or that deep blue shade poets fawn over. Yours are brown, plain, steady, forgettable. At least that's what your governess once implied when she said, "There's nothing wrong with brown, dear. It's honest." So you learn to cheat. This morning your maid brings the small blue vial from the drawer, wrapped in cloth like a contraband secret. She doesn't need to ask. You nod once, and she uncaps it. Belladonna drops. 2 drops in each eye. You tilt your head back and they fall, burning, stinging, flooding your vision with tears. But you hold still. The pain means it's working. Within minutes your pupils widen, swallowing your irises into black velvet pools. The effect is unmistakable, mysterious, seductive, almost feverish. The very look men write sonnets about, if not entirely from memory, then at least from hallucination. Your mother swears by them. She says they give a woman the look of romantic suffering. Apparently that's in style. You blink rapidly, trying not to smear the soot you've just applied to your lashes. The soot was gathered from last night's candle wick, then mixed with a dab of goose fat to hold it in place. You brush it on with a tiny wand carved from peachwood, darkening your lashes until they curl like spider legs. It's not officially makeup, no lady would admit to painting her face, but it's enough to make your eyes seem larger, deeper, more tragic. You dab a bit under the lower lid to mimic shadows, as if you've been up all night with worry. There's an art to it, just the right amount of smudge to suggest heartache, but not illness. You're supposed to look delicate, not dying. Your aunt once said, "Men fall in love with eyes that beg for rescuing." You think about that sometimes, about how many girls are busy softening themselves into victims just to be seen. You hear your younger sister practicing piano downstairs. She's humming, sweetly off-key. She doesn't use the drops. Not yet. She still believes her own face is enough. You remember when you did too. But in this world, honesty gets you nowhere. A woman must be half real, half fantasy. And your eyes, they're not windows to the soul. They're bait. By the time you reach the luncheon, your vision is slightly blurred. Belladonna's side effect. Everything around you seems a little too bright, the edges glowing as if the world's been dipped in milk. It makes the room feel dreamlike, which isn't entirely unpleasant, except for the headache forming just above your right temple. Still, your eyes are magnificent. The other girls notice. You catch their glances, their micro-adjustments, the way one subtly reaches for her own lashes, another blinks too fast, self-conscious. You don't smile, but you feel it. You've won today's silent contest. The gentlemen, of course, are oblivious to the effort. One compliments your eyes, and you murmur something about poor sleep and too much reading. He smiles, charmed by the illusion of intelligence and fragility rolled into one. You sip water, careful not to blink too much. The drops make your eyes water intermittently, and you have to dab at the corners discreetly. Belladonna is unforgiving. Too many uses and you risk permanent damage, impaired sight, tremors, even madness. But beauty has always walked hand in hand with danger, like a dance partner who leads just a little too forcefully. At the far end of the table you notice Lady Frances fanning herself. Her lashes are thick with soot, but one has smeared slightly, forming a smudge near her temple. No one tells her. That's the cruelest part of this game. You're judged in silence. After lunch you retreat to the drawing room, where the windows have been half shuttered against the sun. A girl with golden hair tries to read aloud from Tennyson, but you're too distracted by your own reflection in the tea tray. Your pupils are still wide, your lashes casting perfect shadows on your cheeks. You imagine what it would be like to go a day without altering your face. No drops, no soot, no softening of what you actually are. You wonder if anyone would notice, or worse, if they wouldn't. Later, alone in your room, you lie down and press a cool cloth over your forehead. The ache is stronger now. Your eyes are dry, your temples pulsing. You'll skip the evening walk. Say you're tired. It's not entirely untrue. Your maid enters quietly and places the belladonna vial back in its drawer. You hear the gentle clink of glass against wood, a familiar sound, comforting in a strange way, because this is the routine. You wound yourself to be wanted, blur your vision to be seen, poison your eyes to be looked at, and the worst part, you've started to believe they're prettier this way. The drawing room is bathed in a soft glow, the kind of warm, flickering light that gas lamps are famous for. Not candlelight, not sunlight, gaslight. That strange, middle kind of illumination that makes everyone look just a little more ethereal, a little less real. You're seated near the fireplace, your face angled just so. It's a dance you've rehearsed, keeping one cheek turned toward the sconce, letting the light skim across your powdered skin like cream over tea. In this world, gaslight isn't just ambience, it's beauty's best accomplice. A lady once whispered that gaslight was invented by the devil to fool men into marrying the wrong women. Everything looks perfect by gaslight, she said, sipping her sherry. Even me. You understood what she meant. Gaslight softens your pores, fades your freckles, and gives your skin a glow you could never achieve in daylight. It hides the uneven, the too bold, the not enough. Under gaslight, rouge looks like a natural flush. Powder becomes dew. Even tired eyes seem mysterious, which is why society favours evening visits. You glance across the room at your rival, Miss Lillian Greaves, daughter of the mayor. In daylight she's too pink, too freckled, too loud. But here she's nearly angelic. Her pale green dress shimmers with every breath. Her skin appears luminous. You almost envy her. Almost. The gentlemen notice too. They always do. They comment on radiance and fine colouring, as if the women before them were oil paintings instead of people. You wonder how many have ever seen their own wives in full morning sun. Fewer than you'd guess. You learned long ago never to stand too close to a gaslight, especially not directly beneath it. It reveals everything. The uneven powder on your jaw, the faint shadow of a blemish under your ear. The trick is to stay near it, not under it. Let the edge of the glow find you. Let it love you gently. There are girls who don't understand this and walk straight into the light like moths. You've watched them with quiet pity. They shine too harshly, all forehead and sweat and effort. You've learned to be moonlight, not flame. Even your gowns are chosen with gaslight in mind. Some fabrics reflect too brightly and make you look garish. Others drink the light just enough. Tonight's dress is a deep plum satin. It creates shadows at your waist and softness at your collarbone. In daylight it looks almost dull, but tonight it's perfect. A gentleman approaches. You turn your head just enough to catch the best angle. He tells you that you look positively radiant. You smile, small, silent, correct. The light glints off your earring. You can almost see your reflection in his pupils, wide with admiration and a little confusion. He doesn't know why he finds you beautiful. You do. It's the gaslight. The music has started. Soft strings drifting from the far end of the drawing room. Couples begin to pair off, skirts rustling like whispers, shoes barely tapping the polished floor. You remain seated for a moment longer, savouring the flickering halo around everything. Gaslight turns even the most mundane movements into poetry. Your maid had polished your boots earlier. Not that anyone would see them clearly, but she said it mattered. "They'll catch the light as you walk," she'd whispered, "just enough to make your steps feel like floating." She was right. You glide when the lighting is right. You take your partner's hand. He smells of tobacco and cologne, a little too heavy but forgivable under the circumstances. As you move through the waltz, the light follows you like a secret admirer. You know how to step through its patches, dip into shadow, then emerge radiant. It's like dancing with a ghost that flatters you. He leans in and says, "I never realized how striking your eyes are." Of course he didn't. In daylight, they're an average brown. But tonight, with the gaslight kissing them just so, they're amber, maybe even honey. You smile faintly and say nothing. Around the room, other girls bask in their own golden illusions. Everyone is a little more graceful, a little more mysterious. The blemishes, the sweat, the bruises from corsets, all gone under this forgiving shimmer. But not everything is perfect. You catch a glimpse of poor Margaret Ellison under one of the wall sconces. She's strayed too close again. Her powder has caked slightly at the chin, and the gaslight exposes it cruelly. You see the moment her confidence falters. Her shoulders stiffen, and she steps back into shadow, licking her lips nervously. You've been her once. It only takes one harsh flicker of light to remind you that your beauty is built on fragile tricks. The dance ends, and your partner bows. You curtsy, breath shallow, eyes cast down, knowing full well your profile is better from this angle. You move toward the refreshment table, avoiding the sconce. That one's too direct. The one by the piano, though, that's the one that makes your skin look like milk warmed by candlelight. As you sip watered wine from a crystal glass, a friend leans over and murmurs, "You always look so serene in the evening." You thank her. You don't tell her about the trial and error, the countless hours testing fabrics, angles, expressions in your own dressing mirror. You don't tell her about the way your neck aches from holding your chin at the precise flattering tilt. You don't tell her about the gaslight's lies, because sometimes you prefer them. There's comfort in this glow. It's a little dishonest, yes, but it lets you believe, for just a few hours, that you really are this lovely, that you were born this way, that it isn't all powder and restraint and practice, and maybe, under the right sconce with just the right shadows, even the lie becomes something like truth. You're in the apothecary again. The shelves stretch tall and narrow like dusty tomes, each bottle neatly labelled in cursive too elegant for what's inside. Rosewater, mercury, ammonia, tincture of belladonna. Everything you need to craft a face the world will love, while your body quietly protests beneath it. You're not here for anything dramatic, just a refill of your arsenic complexion wafers. They're tucked behind the counter, of course, not displayed. Too dangerous, too obvious. But the apothecary knows you. He offers a small, polite smile, then pulls a blue box from the drawer and wraps it in brown paper. He doesn't ask questions. You don't offer answers. Arsenic in moderation is miraculous. The wafers promise clearer skin, a luminous glow, fewer blemishes. Some say they reduce puffiness under the eyes. Others say they make your irises brighter. You don't care about the science or the risks. You care that they work. You care that your reflection doesn't betray you. Back home you unwrap the paper with care. The wafers are pale, chalky, almost flavourless. You place one on your tongue and let it dissolve slowly. It tastes like medicine pretending to be nothing. Your lips feel numb afterward. A good sign. You first tried them when you were 15. Your aunt gave you one before a summer wedding. "Only one," she warned. "Any more and you'll glow like a corpse." You hadn't known then how close to the truth that was. There are other concoctions too, some worse. Women drink tonics with mercury to banish spots. They dab ammonia behind their ears to make the skin sting pink and alive. One girl you knew painted her cheeks with crushed beetles. She said the rash it caused gave her a natural flush. It's not just the products, it's the silence. No one admits what they're using. They just appear at the opera or the supper table glowing like saints and smile as if it's all natural, as if their beauty rises from within. You used to wonder how they did it. Now you know. There's a faint tremor in your left hand sometimes. It started 2 months ago. You tell yourself it's nothing. You blame the weather or your corset. But part of you knows better. Still you won't stop. You can't, because if you give up the wafers, what happens next? Your skin will turn. Your cheeks will blotch. The whispers will start. She's fading. She's gone coarse. How sad. And that's worse than a little poison. Because in your world, beauty is currency, and you'd rather spend health than run out of worth. You tuck the wafer box beneath your gloves and handkerchiefs in your top drawer, hidden but not far. You always want them nearby, just in case there's a bad skin day, a sudden invitation, a guest you must outshine. The box is nearly empty. You'll need more soon. Downstairs, your mother is fussing with lace samples, arguing softly with the seamstress about which collar shape best flatters your neckline. Her features are delicate, she says, but her chin is stubborn. We don't want to draw attention there. You pretend not to hear. You've learned the trick of smiling without showing your teeth, and of hearing without reacting. At dinner, you sit beneath the chandelier's filtered glow. A visiting gentleman compliments your complexion. Like fine porcelain, he says. You murmur your thanks and sip your soup with perfect posture, heart fluttering. Not from flattery, but from the wafer you took an hour ago. The room tilts slightly when you stand. Only for a second. You recover quickly, steady yourself with a hand against the carved oak sideboard. No one notices, or if they do, they're too polite to comment. Dizziness has become part of the routine now, as familiar as your corset laces or powder puffs. In your room that evening, you unpin your hair and massage your temples. The headache is back, behind your right eye. You lie on the fainting couch and press a lavender sachet against your forehead, breathing deeply until the nausea recedes. You once read a penny pamphlet warning women of arsenical wasting syndrome. It described trembling fingers, thinning hair, shallow breath. You tucked it under your mattress and never showed anyone. The illustration on the cover looked a bit like you. But then again, everything looks a bit like you these days. Pale, perfect, slightly ghostly. Your maid enters with your nightly warm milk. She hesitates, watching you for a moment longer than usual. Then she says softly, "You don't have to, you know." You don't answer. Because you do have to. You fall asleep with your palms pressed together on your stomach like a statue. Tomorrow is the garden party. A big one. You'll need to look luminous, glowing, just not too glowing. Not glowing like a corpse. The morning sun slides through the drapes like an intruder, catching you off guard. You wince at the light and pull the curtain tighter, even though the room is already dim. The maid has laid out your hairbrushes, ribbons and a tiny bowl of vinegar water. You stare at your reflection. It's your forehead that bothers you today. Not your eyes, not your lips. Just your forehead. Too large, too high, too honest. In another era, that might be a compliment. But in this one, it's something to correct. The latest fashion plates from Paris show women with smooth, round brows, hair swept back into severe updos that make their foreheads gleam like polished ivory. Intellectual, yet innocent, the magazines say. A noble look. But the truth is simpler. It makes your head look longer, your features smaller, your beauty more manufactured. You pick up the vinegar-soaked cloth and dab it along your hairline. The sting wakes you fully. You've been thinning your baby hairs for months, plucking here and there to create that perfectly receding line. Your maid hates this ritual. She says, "Your hair will never grow back properly, miss." You nod, but don't stop. The smell of vinegar mixes with lavender from the hair oil, a strange combination of cleanliness and decay. You reach for the tweezers, fine steel, imported from France, and begin plucking one strand at a time. Tug, sting, tug, sting. It's rhythmic, almost meditative. Each hair gone feels like progress toward perfection. You remember reading that Queen Elizabeth had started this trend centuries earlier, her hairline pulled back to emphasize her face's regal shape. A noble brow, they called it. You wonder if any of those women ever regretted it, staring at their foreheads under candlelight, realizing the damage was permanent. Probably not. Regret isn't fashionable. Your younger sister pokes her head into your room. You'll be late for the garden party, she says. Her hair is still thick, untamed, falling in messy curls around her temples. You envy her for a second, but only a second. She'll learn soon enough. Everyone does. By the time the carriage arrives, your scalp tingles and your forehead shines faintly under a thin film of powder. It catches the light beautifully, flat even, almost waxen. You adjust your bonnet to frame it perfectly. No bangs, of course. Those are for girls who have something to hide. Outside, the day is brilliant. Too brilliant. The garden is a riot of colour. Roses, ribbons, laughter. You join the line of guests greeting the hostess, a woman famous for her smooth, unwrinkled forehead at 40. Rumour says she uses leeches to balance the blood. You believe it. You'd try it too if you thought it worked. As you chat and sip lemonade under the striped canopy, a breeze lifts your hair slightly. You feel the cool air against your exposed skin and shiver, not from cold, but from something stranger. The sensation of being entirely uncovered. It's exhilarating. It's terrifying. You smile politely and smooth your hair again. Appearances must never falter, not even when your scalp is screaming. By late afternoon, the party has drifted into a hazy lull of chatter and sun-warmed wine. You sit beneath the shade of a wisteria trellis, fanning yourself lazily, the air thick with perfume and pretense. Across from you, Lady Caroline leans in to compliment your hairstyle. "So elegant," she says. "I've never seen a hairline so refined." You smile, a careful, composed smile that hides both pride and pain. The skin at your temples is still tender from this morning's plucking, and the tight bun is pulling just enough to make your scalp throb. You thank her softly. She doesn't need to know that your refinement came from vinegar, tweezers, and the quiet endurance of beauty's small cruelties. A younger girl nearby, 16 maybe, giggles with her friends, her fringe falling carelessly across her forehead. A few years ago, that would have been you, unaware, unafraid, hair loose and eyes open to the sun. You catch her reflection in a silver teapot, the way her face glows with laughter, the way she doesn't yet know she's supposed to hide it. She'll learn soon. They all do. The hostess calls everyone to the pavilion for tea, and as you rise, a sudden gust of wind catches your hat. It nearly flies off, tugging at the pins that secure your hair. Instinctively, you reach up, pressing it down, feeling the exposed line of your forehead under your fingertips. For a moment, you panic, imagining stray hairs displaced, the illusion undone, but no one notices. You laugh lightly, pretending it was all in good fun. "The wind's quite bold today," someone jokes. You nod. You can't afford not to laugh. Inside the pavilion, mirrors line the walls. It's fashionable, an illusion of endless space and endless beauty. Everywhere you look, there's another version of yourself staring back, pale, polished, precise. The mirrors blur together, turning the guests into a parade of porcelain faces. For a fleeting second, you can't tell which one is you. You adjust your bonnet again. There, that's better. A gentleman offers you a seat. "You've such fine features," he says kindly, "a face meant for portraits." You thank him, lowering your eyes, the practiced gesture of modesty. Inside, you hear the faint echo of your mother's voice. Hold still. Smile less. Keep your brow smooth. You sip your tea carefully, feeling the heat radiate against your skin. Your forehead itches. You resist the urge to touch it. The conversation hums around you. Weather, gowns, gossip, nothing real. And yet you feel the faintest pull of unease. You wonder if anyone here remembers what their faces looked like before all this. Before the powders and plucking, before the constant adjustments to meet some invisible line. Probably not. On your way home that evening, you rest your head against the carriage seat, careful not to smudge the powder. The city passes outside in golden blur, gaslights flickering awake for nightfall. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in the window pane. You look perfect, composed, almost serene. But beneath the surface, you know what's missing. Not beauty, just softness. The part of you that used to belong to yourself. The morning is quiet, still wrapped in that hazy London fog that smells faintly of soot and damp linen. You're sitting at your vanity again, staring at your lips. They're too pink, too alive. The powder covers your face perfectly, but your mouth ruins everything. Too expressive, too human. Victorian beauty doesn't favour women who look alive. It favours restraint. Lips must whisper, not speak. Kiss, but never hunger. Smile, but never beam. Your mouth is supposed to be a suggestion, not an invitation. You dab at it with a piece of fine linen soaked in diluted lemon water. The sting is sharp, cleansing, almost purifying. The colour fades slightly. Better. Then you dust a touch of starch across them to dull the shine. When you press them together, they feel dry as parchment. That's how it should be. On your dressing table sits a small tin of lip salve made from beeswax and almond oil. You use it rarely, only at night. Too much sheen is indecent. You remember how your governess once said, "A proper lady's lips should look like they've never been kissed, nor intended to be." You were 12 then. You didn't understand. Now you do. Downstairs the maid hums while setting breakfast, and for a fleeting moment you envy her freedom to laugh, to move, to speak without caution. You've trained your own voice into gentleness, each syllable measured, each word coated in soft apology. Loudness in a woman is a form of exposure. You think of portraits again, how every lady's mouth is painted nearly the same, small, pale, expressionless. Even the queens look like they're holding their breath. Maybe they are. Your friend Clara once dared to wear tinted balm, a crushed rose mixed with lanolin. It gave her lips a faint blush, almost natural. People noticed. The whispers began before the second dance that evening. Too bold, someone murmured. Unrefined. By the end of the season, her marriage prospects dimmed like a candle in the rain. She never wore it again. You test a faint smile in the mirror. It looks wrong. Too visible. You lower your gaze, rearrange your mouth into that soft, unreadable line everyone expects. That's better. No one should be able to tell what you're feeling. Desire is dangerous. Even warmth can be misinterpreted. Your mother enters, fastening her brooch. "Try not to chatter too much today," she says absently. "Men like mystery." You nod, your throat dry. You think about all the times you've bitten your tongue to keep it elegant, the times you wanted to laugh loudly or shout or say something unpretty, but didn't. You reach for your gloves. They cover your hands, your arms, and somehow your words too. You're learning that beauty isn't just what you show, it's what you silence. You take one last look in the mirror before leaving for the luncheon. Your face is flawless, your lips are still. You look perfect, you look almost voiceless. The luncheon is hosted in a conservatory. Glass, walls, hanging ferns, the scent of citrus wafting from polished fruit bowls. You move carefully among the guests, lips poised in that slight upward curve. the one you've practiced in silence. Enough to seem pleasant, never enough to seem eager. You take your seat between Lady Milton and her daughter Beatrice, who's only just come out this season. Beatrice has full lips, naturally pink, a little soft at the edges, like she's just been kissed by spring itself. She looks radiant, but she doesn't know how to hide them yet. As she speaks, animated, naive, with her mouth moving in all directions, you can feel the subtle tension building around the table. The older women don't comment, but you see it in the way they tilt their heads. The men notice too. One stares a little too long. Beatrice doesn't seem to mind. She laughs. You wince internally. She'll learn. The conversation drifts to poetry. Someone quotes Tennyson. You nod. Demure. You know the stanza by heart, but you don't recite it. A girl who quotes too much is considered showy. A girl who quotes too little seems simple. You aim for the space between, intelligent, but not intimidating. The hostess passes around sugared violets, delicate and violet pink like crushed dreams. As you lift one to your lips, your fingers hesitate. They'll stain. Not your gloves, your mouth. You wait for someone else to try first. Lady Hargrave does, biting down carefully and dabbing her lips with a napkin before they show too much colour. Smart, you follow her lead. One small bite, then water, not wine. Wine reddens the lips, and today's glassware is too clear to hide behind. You glance around the table and note the perfection of the illusion. Every woman here wears a mouth of silence. Their lips move, but only just, like ventriloquists of propriety. The real speech happens beneath the table, in side glances, in the twitch of a glove, in the delicate clink of a spoon against porcelain. Later, in the garden, you hear Beatrice talking to a gentleman. Her voice rises with excitement, and for a moment her joy fills the air like music. You watch the way her mouth moves, wide, alive, careless. It's beautiful, but you know it won't last. Soon, someone will take her aside, her mother or a friend. They'll suggest a paler balm, a softer tone, a quieter smile. They'll use words like refined and subtle, and she'll nod, not quite understanding, but enough to begin the slow erasure. You walk past her, your expression gentle. She doesn't see you. She's still shining. You remember when you were her. Before you realise that in this world even lips have rules, that too much colour is a cry for attention, that softness is safety, that silence, for women like you, is the first layer of armour. By the time the carriages arrive, the sun has dipped and the mirrors in the hallway darken. You pass one and see yourself, perfect, pale, lips closed. A woman who's mastered the art of being, looked at but never truly heard. It begins before breakfast, always. The quiet evaluation of your silhouette in the mirror, still corseted from the day before. The gentle panic that rises if your dress fits just a little too snug at the waist or doesn't lie perfectly across the hips. You exhale slowly. Maybe you drank too much tea last night. Maybe the starch from the bread roll. You've been taught that weight is not measured by numbers, but by fabric, by whispers, by the way your aunt's eyes narrow if she sees a second helping on your plate. A woman's body is not hers. It belongs to the conversation, the ballroom, the hallway glances. You once overheard a woman at church say, "She's filled out," with that peculiar Victorian tone, neither compliment nor insult, but something sharpened between the two. You were 12. The phrase has haunted your meals ever since. Today you choose a walking dress with vertical stripes, slimming supposedly. Your maid helps fasten the hooks. The waistline sits exactly where it should. You can still breathe, just barely. You descend the stairs and take your place at the breakfast table. Toast, eggs, marmalade, and porridge appear. You opt for half a slice of toast and a single poached egg. No butter, no jam. You smile politely as you decline the cream. "Just tea today," you say, and your mother nods, approving. No one talks about weight exactly. That would be crude. But they talk about self-control, willpower, dainty appetites. The women who eat with hunger are noticed, and not in the good way. Appetite suggests impulse, lack of refinement, perhaps even sensuality. And so you learn to nibble, to fold your hunger into your napkin and sip cold tea instead. Later, during your fitting, the seamstress remarks that your figure has held beautifully. You feel a wash of relief, as though you've passed a test you didn't study for. Many girls soften after Christmas, she adds, but you stay disciplined. You nod and pretend not to feel the slight tremble in your knees. Discipline is the currency of Victorian beauty. Not dieting, not starvation. Those words are too modern. But there are rules, unspoken and rigid as corset stays. Walk often, eat little, chew slowly. Always appear satisfied, never full. Your friend Amelia once confessed she took vinegar before meals. It dulled her appetite, she said. It tastes foul, but it keeps the figure neat. Another girl claimed to tie a ribbon around her stomach beneath her corset. If it hurt when she ate, she'd know to stop. You smiled politely, though you secretly tried it the next day. It worked. You think of your cousin Harriet, who was sent away for health reasons after gaining weight during her first season. They said she'd grown tired, fragile nerves. But you saw the truth in the quiet shame of her departure, and in the way no one mentioned her again. You return to the mirror before tea. Your dress still lies smooth. You inhale, then exhale. No creases. No strain. You've survived the morning. Tomorrow you'll start again. Tea is served at 4, and with it comes temptation disguised as elegance. Clotted cream, strawberry tarts, tiny sandwiches with a crust cut off. Everything is delicate, polite, and dangerous. You sit on a stiff chair near the window, porcelain cup balanced perfectly between gloved fingers, and you nod along to Lady Whittington's stories about her rheumatism and her new lace curtains. The tea is hot and thin, barely brewed. You sip it slowly, letting it anchor you against the gentle pull of the sweets on the table. A maid offers the tiered tray. You select one cucumber sandwich, small, flavourless, safe. Across the room, another girl reaches for a second scone, and you watch the way her mother stiffens. A flicker of disapproval passes between them like static. The scone lands back on the tray, untouched. Conversation continues. This is how it goes. No one says anything aloud, but everyone is listening for crumbs. Every bite becomes a symbol. Too much, and you're undisciplined. Too little, and you're dramatic. The perfect woman eats like she lives, gracefully, quietly, and without taking up space. After tea, you excuse yourself and walk in the garden to keep your legs moving. Digestion is more acceptable when it's concealed under the guise of fresh air. You loop the gravel path twice, posture straight, steps light. You wonder if this counts as exercise. You hope so. You once read a French beauty manual that recommended eating cotton soaked in broth to maintain fullness without calories. It horrified you, and yet it stayed with you. You've never done that, of course, but you have chewed and spit. Once, maybe twice. Back in your room, the maid prepares your evening gown. The bodice is snug, and you feel a flicker of panic as she fastens the final hook. Then it closes. Relief. You light a lavender candle on your vanity, letting the scent calm your thoughts. Your stomach growls softly in the quiet. You press your hand against it, not to soothe it, but to hush it. There is dignity in silence, even the silence of hunger. You open your journal and write down what you had today. Breakfast, 1 egg, half slice of toast. Luncheon, soup, 1 roll, no butter. Tea, 1 sandwich, 3 sips of tea. Dinner, not yet. You draw a tiny check mark beside the page. Success. Outside your window, the city flickers to life. Carriages, laughter, lights. But inside, it's just you, your tight waistline, and the strange satisfaction of being smaller. Because here, beauty isn't measured by what you carry, it's measured by what you refuse. The perfume arrives in a crystal bottle, cut glass, delicate, almost holy. It's from France, of course. Violet and amber, the scent of Paris distilled into one precious ounce. Your friend sent it as a gift, wrapped in lace and excitement. You admire it, but you hesitate. Because perfume, in your world, is dangerous. Proper Victorian women don't smell like anything at all. Or if they must, it should be something faint, soap, starch, maybe the ghost of rosewater. Anything more would raise suspicion. You turn the bottle in your hand, watching light scatter through the liquid. It looks innocent enough, but everyone knows what perfume means. It means vanity. It means indulgence. It means sin. The rumour is that actresses wear it. So do courtesans and foreign women. Respectable ladies, your mother always says, let their cleanliness speak for them. You imagine cleanliness whispering, faint and prim, while perfume practically shouts. Still, you're curious. You remove the stopper and breathe in. It's beautiful, soft, floral, faintly spicy. You dab a drop on your wrist. It warms quickly on your skin, blooming like a secret. Your maid's eyes widen slightly when she smells it. It's lovely, miss, she whispers, but perhaps just for the evening. You nod. Yes, evening. Darkness forgives a little boldness. That night at the dinner table, you feel as if the scent glows from your skin. You can see your mother sniff discreetly. Your father says nothing, but he looks puzzled, as if trying to place the unfamiliar sweetness in the air. You keep your expression neutral, every gesture perfectly correct, as though nothing is amiss. Later, when the guests arrive for cards, Lady Pembroke leans in and says, "You smell divine, my dear. I can't quite name it." Her tone is half compliment, half caution. You thank her softly and change the subject. In the mirror behind her, you see your reflection, composed, perfumed, dangerous. There's power in scent. It clings. It enters rooms before you do. It refuses to be silenced. You've spent years trying to erase your presence, to walk quietly, speak softly, fade gracefully. But this scent, this scandalous little French bottle, it makes you real again. You move through the room, leaving a faint trace behind you. Some turn their heads, curious. Some frown. One gentleman watches you a little too long. You feel both triumphant and terrified. Perfume doesn't lie. It reveals. And tonight, for the first time, you don't want to disappear. After the last guest leaves and the cards are packed away, you sit at your vanity, still cloaked in the faintest echo of violet and amber. It lingers, even though the evening is over, clinging to your collar, your gloves, your throat. It has outlasted the conversation, the wine, even your practiced composure. Your mother enters without knocking. She stands behind you, her reflection hovering like a ghost in the mirror. Her eyes drop to the bottle, on your dressing table. "So," she says softly, "we're French now?" It's a joke, but not really. You smile faintly and reply, "It was a gift." She picks up the bottle, turns it in her hand and inhales. For a moment something flickers behind her eyes, memory perhaps, or regret. Then she sets it down and leaves without another word. That's how it goes in your house. No direct reprimand. Just the careful act of making you question yourself. You reach for your cold cream, ready to wipe away the evening's face. But the scent clings. Even as the powder melts into the cloth, the perfume stays. It's not strong. It was never strong. But it's there, in your hair, behind your ears, on your pillow. You think of the other girls, Those who wear lavender sachets in their corsets or tuck citrus peels into their skirts. They'd never admit to perfuming, but everyone does something. No one wants to smell like laundry and damp stone forever. Still, the risk is real. Too much perfume and you're mistaken for a working girl, or worse, a woman who wants attention. And wanting, in your world, is the most dangerous scent of all. You lie in bed, covers drawn up to your chin, staring at the ceiling. You can smell yourself, not just soap and starch, you. Warm, uncertain, imperfect. And somehow, it feels good. It feels human. The next morning your gloves still hold the scent. So does your hairbrush. The air in your room is softer now, like someone else lives here. Someone freer. But you still hesitate before applying it again. You still hide the bottle under a handkerchief, because you've spent too long mastering invisibility. And the hardest part of becoming real is letting yourself be noticed. You're standing in front of the apothecary's counter again, this time eyeing something less scandalous, but equally potent, cold cream. A thick white salve stored in a heavy glass jar. It's supposed to smooth the skin, banish roughness, and undo the sins of a long day spent under powder, soot, and social expectations. The apothecary wraps it carefully in brown paper, tying the top with string as if it were a parcel of sweets. He says nothing about the snail extract you asked about last week, or the crushed pearls you inquired after yesterday. He's long since learned not to comment on the strange alchemy of feminine upkeep. You thank him and step into the street, the cream warming faintly in your gloved hands. Back home, you place it gently on the vanity alongside your other beauty curiosities, tiny jars of chalky paste, mysterious tinctures, a once expensive French serum made from almond oil, and something that smells faintly of vinegar and regret. Your favourites are the ones no one talks about openly. The snail slime, for instance, imported from somewhere in Italy, or so the bottle claims. You dab it onto your cheeks each night, though the texture makes you shiver. It works. Probably. Or perhaps it's just the idea of it that works. The notion that you're restoring something, rebuilding what society chips away by day. There's also the pearl powder, so fine it drifts into the air like ghost dust. You mix it with rose water and pat it beneath your eyes to brighten the shadows. A lady from Bath swears it cured her of crow's feet, though she never smiled enough to prove whether that was true. As you prepare for bed, you begin your ritual. Wipe away the powder, pat the skin dry, smooth on the cream in upward strokes, just like the beauty guides say. You whisper the steps to yourself like a prayer. Cold cream, snail serum, pearl dust, rose water. Your skin, stripped of its armour, looks strange in the mirror. Too pink in places, shiny in others, human. You remind yourself that this is private, the one moment you belong only to yourself. Then the door creaks open. It's your maid, holding a new jar you requested, a honey mask rumoured to be favoured by actresses in Vienna. You thank her and tuck it behind your brush box. You'll try it tomorrow, alone, where no one can see you experimenting with glamour. You wonder sometimes how much of your beauty is you, and how much is borrowed, scraped from shells, pulled from flowers, squeezed from snails, and whether it matters. Because the truth is, no one asks how you glow, only that you do. You wake the next morning to grey light filtering through the curtains and the familiar weight of your own reflection waiting at the vanity. Your skin feels a little softer. Perhaps the cold cream worked. Perhaps the snail extract seeped in overnight and whispered to your pores. You sit and begin again. The mirror is kinder this morning. Maybe it's the pearl powder, or maybe you've simply learned to love the illusion. You stroke your fingertips along your cheek, feeling the smoothness that only comes from an hour spent layering oils and masks and pastes not meant to be spoken of. The rituals are private, yes, but not always secret. Every woman has her recipe. Some use butter mixed with lime. Others swear by egg whites for tightening the skin. One daring friend of yours confessed to using mashed strawberries on her elbows. You laughed when she told you, then tried it that night. There's an intimacy to these mixtures. They're not for show, not for men, not even for your mother's approval. They're for you. A small reclaiming of the body that everyone else believes they own. Still, even this sanctuary isn't without judgment. Last week, at Lady Breckworth's gathering, someone mentioned the strange shine on Miss Fielding's face. Too much ointment, they said. She must be using something unnatural. The implication lingered in the air like bad perfume. Not only did she care too much, but she failed to hide it. That's the tightrope. You're expected to polish, but never visibly. Glow, but don't glisten. Improve, but never appear to be trying. You glance at the cold cream again. It's only half used, but already you feel guilty for needing it. Needing anything. You imagine for a moment washing your face with plain water and nothing else. Letting the powder settle into your lines. Letting your skin live. But you know you won't. Not today. Because tonight there's a dinner. A man will be there. Your mother has already circled his name in her social calendar, with more ink than was necessary. You'll need to look fresh, soft, unspoiled. So you reach for the jar again. The lid is cool against your fingers. You apply it gently, slowly, like a secret spell. In the mirror, your reflection watches, quiet and obedient. And behind that mask of moisture and pearl and powder, you feel the real you, sleeping, waiting, smothered under layers of effort. But lovely, always lovely. You feel it before you see it. That quiet, creeping warmth in your cheeks that no amount of powder can entirely hide. You're blushing, again. Not from romance or flattery, but something far less poetic. Your cycle has begun. In Victorian society, this is not to be discussed. Not even with your closest friends. The body's quiet rhythms are to be hidden like dust under a parlour rug. Everyone knows it's there, but no one dares look. You excuse yourself from breakfast and retreat to your bedroom, pressing a cold cloth to your cheeks. The warmth lingers. Worse, there's a faint flush climbing your neck. A betrayal of both modesty and complexion. You reach for your rouge. Yes, rouge. Not to deepen the colour, but to control it. To even it out. If you must appear flushed, it will be on your terms. Your rouge is subtle, made from crushed geranium petals and a hint of raspberry vinegar. It smells faintly of flowers and discipline. You dab a touch on each cheek, blending carefully. Not too high, or you'll look fevered. Not too low, or you'll appear sunburned. Rouge is dangerous, but so is nature. It strikes you how many women fake what their bodies already give them naturally. Flushed cheeks, moist eyes, warm skin, and then conceal the real thing when it dares to arrive uninvited. Your governess once said, "Rosy cheeks suggest vitality, but too much, and you look vulgar." You were 14 then, and already learning the nuance of artifice. Later, at your embroidery circle, you feel the eyes of the room turn toward you, not unkindly, but with faint interest. "You're looking well today," someone says. "Healthy." You murmur your thanks, heart pounding. You want to laugh, if they only knew. Under your corset, your stomach is twisting, tender and knotted. Your linen undergarments are quietly absorbing the evidence of your womanhood. Another thing you must pretend doesn't exist. You think of the old myths, how menstruating women were once thought to spoil mirrors and sour milk. You were told never to touch the pickles in the larder during those days. Even now you wonder if your skin knows, if your body is betraying some invisible signal you can't quite conceal. You sip your tea slowly. One hand holds the teacup. The other, under the table, clenches your handkerchief. Outside, the sky is cloudy, low and swollen. You imagine lying down under it, letting the ache have its way. But you can't. You're expected to stay upright, glowing, attentive. You're a girl at war with her own chemistry, and rouge is your armour. By the time you return home, the ache has spread, low and deep like something ancient stirring beneath your stays. You want nothing more than to lie down, but there's company expected for supper. Your mother insists you change gowns. You look a little pale, she says, not knowing the irony. You've spent the day trying to look pale. Back in your room, you reapply a touch of rouge to your cheeks, just enough to counter the waxy fatigue now settling into your features. You also press your fingertips to your lips, wondering if they need colour too. You hesitate, remembering yesterday's lecture on restraint, and instead rub a pinch of rose petals between your palms, then tap them against your mouth. A natural flush, a whispered lie. The scent lifts faintly toward your nose. You catch yourself breathing deeply, not for the fragrance, but for the brief illusion of rest. In the wardrobe, you avoid the white muslin gown. It's too risky tonight. Instead, you choose the soft grey one, the one with the dark sash that sits just above the stomach. It's safer, forgiving, strategically plain. As you dress, you move slower, mindful of each step, each movement. Every inch of you feels like borrowed space. Your own body has become unfamiliar again, more alive, more insistent, and therefore more dangerous. You wonder, not for the first time, if any of the men at supper tonight have the slightest idea of what's happening beneath the tablecloths and silk. Probably not. They'll compliment your posture, your complexion, your restraint with the pudding course. They'll never know that each compliment rests on the edge of discomfort. At the dinner table, conversation turns to health and the season's illnesses. Someone mentions laudanum with the confidence of a man who's never tasted it. You stir your soup quietly and focus on keeping your expression pleasant, even as the pressure in your back builds with the force of a small, angry tide. You think about the other women at the table. Are they pretending too? Are their cheeks pink from rouge or from heat, discomfort, pain? Is every smile held together by threads of effort and etiquette? Perhaps. You once read in a discreet pamphlet that some women use leeches to balance their humours during their monthly cycle. It was printed in tiny script and burned immediately after reading. But the image stayed with you. This idea that even nature itself needed correcting. The soup is warm, the candlelight kind, and you manage to get through the meal without a single crack in your mask. Later in bed, you curl on your side and press a heated stone against your lower belly. The pain is quiet now, manageable. Your rouge has long since worn off, and in the dark you allow your face to rest. No more colour, no more control, just you, flushed, aching, and still beautiful, even when no one's watching. It's raining outside, soft, steady, respectable rain that taps gently on the window panes and makes the drawing room feel even more enclosed than usual. You're sitting still, gloved hands folded on your lap, while your aunt lectures the seamstress about the virtues of restraint in ornamentation. No one wants a girl who looks like a chandelier, she declares. You nod because that's expected. But your eyes drift to the tray on the sideboard, where a necklace lies waiting. A gift from your cousin, delicate gold filigree with a single garnet at the centre. Not too much, not vulgar, but perhaps a little bold. You're not wearing it, because jewellery in your world is a language of its own, and it speaks far louder than anyone admits. A diamond says wealth, but too much of it says vanity. A string of pearls is tasteful, unless the pearls are too large, too luminous, too proud. Bright colours are frowned upon unless they're inherited. Rubies? Risky. Emeralds? Even riskier. The safest jewels are the ones that seem accidental, You remember once at a winter ball a girl wore sapphires that glittered like frost. Everyone whispered. Not because she looked improper, but because she looked too rich, too confident. Her necklace entered the room before she did. That's the danger. You rise from your chair and move toward the window, where your reflection waits faintly in the glass. No earrings today, a narrow brooch, no bracelets. That's enough. The goal is to enhance, never distract. The true prize is not to be noticed for your accessories, but to be admired as though you shimmer naturally. Still, you remember the first time you ever wore real jewellery. You were 13. A birthday gift. A small locket on a chain so fine it nearly disappeared against your collarbone. You'd stood in front of the mirror for hours, tilting your chin, imagining how it might catch the light. You felt older, important, beautiful. Now, you wear beauty with more calculation. You know the rules. Today, for instance, you're allowed the garnet. It matches the wine-coloured trim on your sleeves, but no rings, too suggestive, no dangling earrings, too French. Even the way you wear a piece matters. A necklace worn too tightly hints at desperation, too loosely, and it appears careless. You adjust your brooch slightly, centred but not proud. There. Your mother enters and eyes your ensemble. She says nothing, but her gaze lingers on the garnet you haven't put on. You read her perfectly. A pause, a nod, silent approval. So you leave it on the tray. Beauty here is not about decoration. It's about knowing when to disappear. Later that afternoon, you're called upon unexpectedly. A family from Sussex is in town and they've dropped by for tea, unannounced as is the custom for people who pretend not to care about impressions while secretly hoping to catch you off guard. You descend the stairs carefully, gown immaculate, hair fixed, expression pleasant. Your gloves are on, your shoes clean, and your jewellery modest, just the brooch. Mrs. Halberton, the matriarch, sits perched like a cat who has swallowed something expensive. Her eyes scan you quickly. Neck, ears, wrists. You feel her calculating. Her own daughter, Lillian, wears a necklace of seed pearls strung in 3 loops, and a sapphire pin so large it borders on theatrical. Her cheeks are a little too flushed, her gown a touch too bold for daylight. Mrs. Halberton smiles sweetly and says, "So refreshing to see a young lady who doesn't feel the need to wear all her belongings at once." It's meant as a compliment, but also a warning. You smile in return. The weather didn't call for diamonds today. A soft titter follows. Your mother's teacup clinks approvingly against the saucer. You've won the round. Because here, beauty is a chess game. Each choice, how much lace, how few rings, how tight the curls, sends a message. And jewellery, for all its sparkle, must never overshadow the illusion of effortlessness. The moment you look like you tried, you've failed. Lillian looks down, adjusting her sleeve, cheeks colouring further. You almost pity her. Almost. After the guests leave, your mother remarks that restraint is always more powerful than display. Let the dress speak, she says. Let the face speak. Jewellery should only whisper. But you wonder quietly why you must always be so quiet. That evening you sit by candlelight and open the little velvet pouch where your garnet necklace waits. It glints dully in the dim light, patient. You hold it up to your neck, just to feel the weight of it. It's heavier than you remember. You fasten the clasp, not for a ball, not for a caller, not for anyone else, but just to see. And in the mirror, for the first time in days, you don't look pleasant, or modest, or correct. You look striking, not loud, but undeniable, and for a moment you let yourself shine. Your boots pinch today. They always pinch, if you're being honest. But this pair, soft black leather with a row of pearly buttons and a neatly pointed toe, has been particularly cruel since the first fitting. You wore them anyway, of course, because in Victorian society, footwear doesn't need to feel good. It needs to speak on your behalf. And what it says is everything. You sit on the edge of the chaise and brace your fingers against the sides of your ankle as the maid buttons each loop. The final 3 require breath holding. You murmur thank you as she stands, even though your big toe is already going numb. The boots are beautiful, slim, elegant, and utterly unwalkable. Perfect. Your dress sweeps to the floor, of course. No one's supposed to see your feet. But that doesn't matter. What matters is how you move. Short, delicate steps. Never a stride, never a stomp. The sound of a boot heel against the parquet floor must be like a heartbeat. Faint, ladylike, refined. You once saw a market girl run across the cobbles barefoot. Her soles were filthy, her steps wild. You were horrified, and secretly a little envious. She moved like she owned her body. You, in contrast, move like a sculpture on a wheeled pedestal. The boots shape you in more ways than just form. They teach you to pause before walking, to glide, to hesitate. You've learned to time your exits and entrances around the aches in your toes. You've even learned how to smile while seated just long enough that no one suspects you're doing it to avoid standing. You reach for your gloves and parasol, preparing to visit your music tutor across town. He has no idea that every note of your pianoforte is punctuated by the throb of blisters, that you sit straighter, not out of posture, but because slouching shifts the weight on your aching arches. Outside, the pavement is slick with last night's rain. You must step carefully to avoid slipping. But careful is what you do best. Another woman might wear thicker heels, but thicker heels are for housemaids or country cousins. You're neither. The boots say so. Your friend Cecilia once confessed that she pads the toe of her left shoe with wool, not for comfort, but to match the right, which had been moulded by a bunion. She laughed when she said it, then bit her lip. "I'd rather limp in silence," she whispered, "than wear anything with rubber." And so you walk slowly down the street, one tiny, perfect step at a time. Your gait is graceful. Your pain is invisible, and no one would ever guess that under your skirts your toenails are bruised. By the time you reach the music tutor's townhouse, the tops of your feet are pulsing with heat. You've already rehearsed how you'll sit, ankles crossed, left foot tucked just slightly behind the right to hide the awkward bend of your toes. You've done this before. Inside, the tutor greets you with a bow and a tired smile. He's kind, and thankfully, brief in his praise. "You play with such stillness," he says, as you lower yourself onto the bench. He has no idea how much of that stillness is pain management. Your boots remain on, of course. Removing them would not only be inappropriate, it would be impossible. The buttons are too tight. Your feet have swollen against the seams. You press the piano pedals with only your heel, avoiding the toe, which now feels like it's growing a second heartbeat. The music flows anyway. You've long since mastered the art of performance under discomfort. Your hands move with grace. Your spine stays tall. The notes rise and fall with practiced elegance, and no one sees your calf muscle twitch each time you shift your weight to relieve the pressure. Afterward, you thank him with a soft smile and step back into the hallway, back into the boots. The walk home is longer than you remember. The left boot rubs with each step. The right one has begun to split slightly at the seam, but you dare not replace them yet. They were expensive. More importantly, they are flattering. They make your ankles look slimmer, your walk more refined. You can't afford to trade that for comfort. Back in your room, you shut the door and finally collapse onto the chaise. You grit your teeth as your maid unbuttons each loop. The leather sighs as it releases. You do too. Your stockings are damp with sweat. The skin beneath is red and angry. Blisters have begun to bloom along your pinky toes. The nail on your second toe is darkening. Still, you fold the boots carefully, wrap them in tissue and return them to their box. They are not broken. You are. Later, as you soak your feet in lavender water, you think about how little of this is ever discussed. Feet are unspoken territory. You can bare your soul before you can bare your soul. No one wants to imagine the bruises beneath the ball gown. And yet, every woman you know shares the same quiet truth, that beauty, at its most convincing, starts at the tips of the toes, where the pain is deepest and the silence is loudest. You rub ointment into the raw spots, wrap each toe like a secret, and slide into your evening slippers. They're softer, slightly. You smile, not because they feel good, but because they hurt a little less. You first noticed the grey hair 2 mornings ago, buried quietly along your part like a thread that didn't belong. It caught the light differently, cooler, sharper. You stared at it longer than you should have, long enough that your tea went cold and your maid pretended not to notice. Now it's all you can think about. At 17, a grey hair is an accident. At 24, it's a warning, a reminder that your shelf life is real and shrinking. You sit at the vanity today with a heavy knowledge that every strand matters. Your mother once told you, a single grey hair can ruin a season. You believed her then. You believe her still. The box of dye sits unopened on your dressing table. It's labelled discreetly, chestnut tonic. The instructions are handwritten in looping script, designed to look like a recipe instead of a confession. No one admits to dyeing their hair. They say things like natural shine or hereditary vibrancy. They credit cold rinses and good breeding. But you've seen the truth in your cousin's bathroom cabinet. Bottles of walnut ink, henna, and something labelled burnt clove rinse. She once said she'd rather drink poison than let her fiancé see her grey. You believed her too. You lift the lid and open the bottle. The smell is sharp, earthy, with a bitter bite like oversteeped tea. Your maid has prepared the gloves, the cloth, the comb. She's done this before. For your mother, for your aunt, even for herself. She says nothing, only holds the mirror at the proper angle. As the dye settles into your scalp, you feel the burn. Not pain, exactly. More like heat, as if the vanity itself has passed judgment. You think about the women who let their grey grow. They're rare and brave and often unmarried. The ones who age visibly are either too rich to care or too poor to hide it. You are neither. The clock ticks. The die sets. You sit very still, as if movement might encourage the truth to come back. Finally, your maid wipes the last traces from your forehead. The roots are dark again, shiny, seamless. You look young, not just young but preserved, like a fruit kept too long in syrup. You smile in the mirror, but it doesn't quite reach your eyes, because you know this isn't the end. Grey hair is just the first betrayal. That evening, the compliments return like clockwork. You look so refreshed, someone says at the dinner table, eyes sweeping over your hairline. You must have been resting well. You thank them, of course. You smile. You tilt your head slightly to catch the light, and you feel the familiar tug inside, that strange mix of victory and invisibility that always follows a successful disguise. No one can see the gloves your maid wore that morning. No one can smell the acrid clove and iron on your scalp. They just see youth, or what they think is youth, and in this world, perception is everything. After supper, you join the ladies in the drawing room. The fire crackles. The tea is sweet. The conversation dances over new gowns, opera tickets, and inevitably the latest scandal. She's let her hair go, one woman whispers, referring to a duchess just past 40. Salt and pepper, right at the temples. Bold, really, or perhaps she's given up. They all nod, tutting softly. You sit silently, your newly darkened hair tucked neatly behind your ears. You imagine reaching up, pulling it free, showing them the grey strand that caused all this. You imagine what they'd say. Brave, foolish, honest. But of course you don't, because you know what happens to women who age out loud. They become invisible, or they become jokes. There's no third path. You remember your grandmother's hands, lined, warm, and always buried in some kind of work. She had silver hair she never dyed. You loved it. But then again, you were a child. Children are allowed to love what society hasn't yet condemned. Now, you love things in secret. At bedtime, you wrap your hair in a silk scarf to protect the new colour. Your maid braids it softly, and you catch her glancing at your temples. "It took well," she murmurs. You nod. It did. But your scalp still burns faintly, and you know the colour will fade. In 2 weeks the roots will peek through again, quiet and defiant. You'll be ready. You'll dye it again. Because in this world, beauty is not just effort, it's repetition. And the moment you stop repeating it, like prayer, like ritual, you begin to disappear. The hour is early, still grey outside. You haven't even stepped into your day dress, yet already the rituals begin. Your maid has just rung the bell for hot water. The fire is being lit. The kettle hisses faintly, and there, laid out on your dressing table like a surgeon's instruments, is everything you'll need for your morning transformation. This is the part no one talks about, because the morning routine of a Victorian lady isn't dainty or luxurious, it's labour. Quiet, repetitive labour disguised as elegance. First, starch for the collars. The linen must be crisp enough to stand like a soldier, but soft enough to fold at the neck without leaving lines. You've learned to detect the perfect ratio by scent. Too much, and you'll smell like laundry soap all day. Too little, and the fabric will wilt before luncheon. Second, steam. Your face hovers over a porcelain bowl filled with chamomile and rose petals, the heat rising in soft clouds that open your pores and fog your lashes. You close your eyes, breathing in the warmth. This is the closest thing to rest you'll have today. Third, ice water. You press a chilled cloth to your cheeks to close the pores again, tighten the skin. It stings, but your governess swore it was the secret to appearing alert yet untouchable. You wonder if she still does it, wherever she is now, married off to a minor lord, or perhaps buried beneath a stone that says nothing about her complexion. Then comes the paste, a thick concoction of chalk, zinc, and a touch of rose water. You smooth it across your face like gesso on a canvas. It doesn't just conceal blemishes, it erases identity. The goal isn't to look like you, it's to look like every other well-bred woman in the room, pale, still, symmetrical. While the paste sets, you begin the bodywork. You oil your arms and legs with almond milk lotion, careful not to miss the elbows or knees. No one's supposed to see those, of course, but heaven forbid they feel dry under your stockings. You slip into your first layer, a chemise, clean and freshly pressed. Then the stays, then the drawers, then the petticoats, then the corset. By the time your maid tightens the final ribbon, you've been awake for nearly an hour and haven't spoken a word. This silence is part of the performance. Victorian mornings are not for chatter. They are for becoming, constructing, layering yourself into existence. And finally, once the structure is complete, you sit, quiet and rigid, and begin to paint the final face that the world will see. The woman who emerges from this ritual is lovely, but she is also a ghost, a creature built from starch and powder, steam and silence, and the world will love her, even if you, somewhere inside, feel like she has nothing to do with you at all. The bells ring for breakfast. By the time you descend the stairs, your body no longer feels like your own. It belongs to the gown now, to the lace at your wrists, the high collar at your throat, the weight of the brooch holding everything together, Each part of you has been fastened, polished, cinched, and silenced. You move like a portrait come to life. Your family sits quietly at the long table. The men already smell of tobacco and ink. The women, your mother, your aunt, are crisp, clean, and completely unreadable. You fold yourself into your chair and unfold your napkin like a ritual. Your face remains placid. Your back doesn't touch the chair. Your hands hover delicately above the porcelain. No one says, "You look beautiful this morning." That would be too direct. Instead, your father remarks, "You're looking more composed this season." A compliment disguised as a moral judgment. You smile. You've been trained to receive praise like this, as if it were duty, not delight. As you butter a slice of toast, your stays dig into your ribs. You adjust slightly, careful not to draw attention. Your maid tied the corset tighter this morning. "For the riding habit," she said. "You're not riding, but it doesn't matter. The shape must be held." A slight clatter breaks the quiet. Your cousin drops her fork. All eyes shift. She flushes deeply, mortified. You look away quickly. Out of courtesy, yes, but also out of recognition. You've been her. You will be her again. After breakfast, you retreat to the sitting room with your embroidery. This too is part of the morning ritual. Not just the grooming of the body, but the behaviour. Sit straight. Speak softly. Laugh only with the eyes. Even leisure must be curated. A neighbour arrives with her daughter, a girl of 16 who has not yet mastered the morning transformation. Her hair is slightly out of place, her sleeves a touch too long, but worst of all, she is flushed, radiant with youth and unaware of how dangerous that can be. The older women make polite conversation, all the while scanning her, taking in the looseness, the effortlessness, the threat. You watch silently and feel a pang of memory. You were like her once, before the rituals, before the masks, and you wonder, if someone had stopped you then, if someone had said, "Don't start," would you have listened? Probably not, because no one wants to be the girl who stands out for the wrong reasons. No one wants to be the only one without cold cream or tight stays or shoes that make your toes go numb. Beauty here is not about comfort. It's about conformity. It's not a joy. It's a job. And this morning, like every morning, you've shown up for it, perfectly on time. You're standing in front of the looking glass again, but this time it isn't your own. You've come to visit your cousin in Knightsbridge, and her room is filled with strange little bottles from far-off places. The air smells not of lavender or starch, but something warmer, deeper, like sandalwood, like cinnamon. She's always been a little different. Her father was stationed abroad, and her wardrobe is dotted with silk from India, ivory hairpins from Ceylon, and lace that doesn't follow the proper English patterns. Her skin, though pale, holds a golden tone that your aunt calls unfortunate. You find it rather beautiful. She shows you a new powder she bought from a Parisian chemist. Ground lotus petal mixed with pearl dust, and something she whispers is borrowed from the East. You ask what that means, but she just shrugs. Everyone's borrowing from somewhere now, she says. She's right. You've noticed the slow invasion of foreign miracles in the parlours of the fashionable. Rice powders, jasmine oils, crushed coral for blush, even turmeric tinctures. The women buy them in secret and apply them in silence, but they all want the same thing, an exotic glow, without ever looking like the source. You watch your cousin apply the powder to her temples. It gleams faintly in the gaslight, not shimmery, just luminous. Her cheekbones catch it beautifully. You hesitate, then ask to try. She smiles and dabs it lightly on your skin. It smells faintly of rose and something unfamiliar, earthier, richer. As you look into her mirror, you don't quite recognize yourself. There's a new softness to your reflection, a warmth that your usual chalky paste never offered. It feels like a rebellion, but only for a moment, because you know you won't wear it to supper, not in your house, not under your mother's eye. You wipe it off with a silk cloth and reach for your rose water instead. Your cousin watches you and says nothing, but she doesn't wipe hers away. At dinner, she sits across from you, glowing, not scandalously, not defiantly, just differently. And you see how the others notice. Aunt Judith squints at her in mild confusion. Lady Weatherby whispers something behind her fan, but no one says anything outright, because even here, even among the rigid ranks of Victorian beauty, the colonial world has left fingerprints. They just don't want to admit it. You sip your soup in silence, cheeks powdered pale, while your cousin glows like something from a painting, half fantasy, half future. And for the first time you realise this beauty standard you fought so hard to uphold, it wasn't even fully yours to begin with. Later that night, long after supper, you find yourself seated beside your cousin once more, this time in her dimly lit bedroom, with the curtain half drawn and the air thick with the smell of foreign oils warming on her lamp. You ask her quietly, "Where did you really get that powder?" She smiles and opens a drawer filled with curiosities, carved wooden combs, silk sachets, glass pots labelled in unfamiliar scripts. "Most of it came from my ayah," she says, "back in Bombay." You finger one of the little jars. It smells like cloves and something you can't name. She sees your hesitation. You're not sure if it's allowed. You don't deny it. Because in your world, beauty is tightly regulated, and foreignness, true, visible, undeniable foreignness, is always pushed to the edges. Exotic is interesting in magazines, dangerous in parlours. Still, there's a strange thrill in the idea of stepping outside the known, using something not in the guidebooks, something not blended and bleached into Englishness, a scent that doesn't apologise, a shade that doesn't vanish into powdery white. But with that thrill comes risk. You think of the girls who lean too far into these imported aesthetics, wearing bold silks, dark coals, strange spices behind their ears. They become curiosities, talked about, dismissed, desired sometimes, but always at arm's length. You can't afford that. Not when your season still hangs in the balance. Not when your mother still reads your face like a ledger of social credit. So you admire the jars, ask polite questions, dab a tiny trace of sandalwood oil on your wrist, just enough to carry its scent home in your glove, just enough to remember. Before bed, you sit at your cousin's vanity once more. The moonlight touches the mirror's edge as she brushes out your hair for you, an old ritual from childhood. Her fingers are gentle, but firm. When she finishes, she gathers your hair behind your shoulders and says, "You'd look beautiful in kohl." You believe her, but you don't say so. Instead, you gather your robe, blow out the candle, and return to your guest room where your rosewater, starch, and white powder wait, safely English. Still, as you slide under the covers, you catch a faint trace of spice on your skin, and in the dark, with no one watching, you let it stay. You wake to the sound of rain again, not the polite drizzle of a London morning, but a steady, insistent downpour. It drums against the windows like 1,000 impatient fingers, as if trying to peel back the walls of the house and see what's really inside. You sit up slowly, feeling the stiffness in your back from yesterday's corset. The mirror waits, as it always does, across from your bed. The usual tools are arranged beneath it: powder, brushes, stays, pins. You could go through the motions half asleep now. In many ways you already do, but today feels heavier. You rise, cross the room and sit at the vanity. In the mirror you don't immediately recognise yourself, not because of some flaw, not because of fatigue, but because the girl staring back at you, poised, powdered, perfectly still, feels more like a statue than a person. You reach for the cold cream, then pause. The silence stretches. Your hand drifts instead to your scalp. You run your fingers through your hair, not gently, not as preparation, but as if trying to wake something up. The curls have flattened overnight. A few strands fall rebelliously across your forehead. You leave them there. You glance down at your bodice, then at the corset hanging like a question mark from its hook. You feel the faintest flutter of rebellion. Not loud, not reckless, but enough to make you wonder, what would happen if I didn't tighten it today? Not because you plan to renounce beauty, but because you're suddenly struck by how long it's been since you wore your own body without armour. You remember all the mornings you've painted your skin into porcelain, silenced your lips, hidden your scent, crushed your feet, starved your stomach, burned your scalp, erased your greys, plucked your hairline, and called it routine. You've performed so long, you've forgotten what you look like unlit, unpowdered, unpolished. And more importantly, you've forgotten how it feels. You reach for the window latch and open it slightly. Cool air rushes in, wet and alive. You breathe deeply. Your skin tingles in response. For once, you don't recoil. Your maid knocks quietly. 10 minutes until dressing, miss. You hesitate, then you say softly, "Thank you," and don't move. Because for just this morning you want to sit here as you are. Without the war paint, without the whispers, just you. The corset still hangs on its hook. The powder puff lies untouched, and in this rare moment you realise the world outside hasn't ended. The house still murmurs with distant footsteps. Someone is slicing bread in the kitchen. A carriage passes outside. Time continues, indifferent to whether or not you've starched your collar or tamed your hair. You run your fingers over your face, lightly, curiously. Your skin is soft, warmer than usual, still yours, still alive. And for the first time in years, you feel no urgency to smother it. You glance at the unopened powder box and think of everything it has promised you: paleness, elegance, worthiness, but also silence, erasure, an identity carefully airbrushed to fit a narrow frame, a face that pleases everyone but yourself. You stand slowly, walk to the wardrobe, and touch your gown. It's lovely. Of course it is. But today, it feels like costume, like a part you've been playing for so long that you forgot there was ever a script. Your hand drops. Instead, you pull on your robe and wrap it tightly around your waist. No corset, no shoes. You move to the window and lean your forehead gently against the cool pane. Rain beads against the glass. The sky is heavy but not unkind. You watch the street below. A little boy jumps over puddles, coat flapping wildly. His joy is indecent, untidy, and free. You smile. It's not a modest smile, not a practice smile, just a real one. You don't plan to abandon beauty. You don't renounce powder or perfume. You know the world you live in. You know what it expects. But you also know this: beauty built on punishment is a prison. And today, you found the key. Somewhere behind you, the maid knocks again, this time a little louder. "Miss?" You glance at your reflection one last time. Still pale, still imperfect, still beautiful. But this time, on your own terms. You turn toward the door and say, with a voice that surprises even you, "I'll dress in a bit." And when you do, it will not be to disappear. It will be to arrive. And now, as the rain slows and the sky outside fades into a quiet evening grey, you breathe a little deeper. You've travelled through powders and corsets, through arsenic wafers and gaslight illusions. You've touched the cold edges of vanity and the quiet ache of discipline. You've seen what it takes to become the kind of beautiful the world demands: sharp, silent, starched. And how often that beauty came at the cost of breath, softness, and self. But here, in this stillness, you let it all fall away. There's no mirror now, no buttons to fasten, no waist to measure, just the soft sound of rain on the window, the warmth of your own skin beneath the robe, and the faint scent of rosewater clinging to your pillow. You're allowed at last to be unpolished, to be real. Let your hands unclench, let your shoulders drop, let your feet rest, free of leather and lace. You've carried so many layers today, so many expectations, and now none of it is needed, because you are here, whole, worthy, without the powder, without the performance. The house grows quieter, the room darkens, and as your breath slows, you feel something settle, not surrender, but peace, the kind that lives not in perfection, but in release. Close your eyes, let the rain hush your thoughts, let sleep come gently, like a soft lace veil drawn over your brow. You're safe, you're enough, you're free.